Over the last two chapters, it's been extremely clear that Epic Games is trying to take Fortnite in a way new direction. Between crazy new graphics and lighting, wild new weapons, and updates and additions to the game that we would have never even thought of before, Epic Games has been trying to completely change Fortnite, whether for better or for worse. These past two chapters have looked, played, and felt completely different from everything before, and so I think it would be fun today to compare the two, go over the weapons, the map, the seasons, everything, and see which is better out of the two of them and which formula Epic Games should follow in the future between these two extremely realistic and way different chapters we've had. This video is going to be Chapter 4 versus Chapter 5. Overall, which one was better? Now, I think if we're going to give an objective rating of these two, then we need to quickly run through each season of each chapter. Give it a quick rating and see how those overall align, and that can kind of give us a sense of what's better and what's worse. Starting off with the season 1s of each chapter, we have Chapter 4 Season 1, which I believe to be a pretty terrible season. Although it did bring some fun guns like the Thunder Shotgun, the Shockwave Hammer, and stuff like that. It was very, very underwhelming for me, and honestly, having my favorite chapter ended to get a chapter which brought Unreal Engine 5 out with incredibly realistic graphics, which I am not a fan of, as well as making the game incredibly laggier and having basically one or two new glitches every single day. I wasn't a huge fan of this season. 4 out of 10. As for Chapter 5, the Season 1 was very mid for me. At the start, it was terrible, and with the movement changes, I almost quit the game. But once they actually started adding things, it was pretty fun, but I still think it was carried by the sniper. I'm going to give this season a 6.5 out of 10. Then we move on to Season 2. These are, in my opinion, both the best of the chapters. Chapter 4 brought one of the most fun loot pools we've ever had. 200 pump, Mythic Havoc, Katana, Twin Mag, Havoc Rifle, you name it. So many notable weapons from this. Mega City and Steamy Springs, two POIs that I absolutely loved. And overall, I think that the Mega City biome was some of the best map changes we had that entire chapter. I'm going to give this season a 7.5 out of 10. I absolutely love it. Then we have Chapter 5, where we got two great new biomes on the map, even though they took away two of my favorite POIs. Sniper still carried this season, but the addition of the Gatekeeper and some other guns was really, really fun. And overall, I think I had the most fun this season out of any other season this chapter. It's going to be getting a 7 out of 10. Then we move on to Season 3, which I think is pretty objectively the worst for both. Wilds was just kind of a spray meta. My favorite gun of all time, the Mammoth Pistol, was added this season, but I never actually played with it this season because I didn't want to play. Yeah, it was just too much of a spray meta. The new biome was horrible and so hard to traverse, and it was a sad excuse for a summer update. So this season, I think the community overall hates. This season's going to be a 3 out of 10. Then we have Wrecked. 1 out of 10. Do I need to even explain why this season is the worst of all time? I don't think I need to, and if you like it, you're probably not a very good player. I don't mean to ruffle your feathers, but like the fact that Nitro Fists and Boss Cars exists makes me want to file some complaints to Epic Games. 1 out of 10. Now Season 4 is where there's really a big difference. Chapter 4 Season 4 had one of the most unique loot pools of all time, which I thought was extremely fun, mainly for zero build, as well as the addition of some very, very good POIs. Overall, I really enjoyed this season, but not quite as much as Season 2. I'll give this one a 7 out of 10. It was really, really fun. And then we have this season, Absolutedoom. I think this season is pretty underwhelming. It's simple, not boring, it's just kind of plain. Nothing they've added is really insane or incredible. It's a very meh season. I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's all right. Once we tally everything up, here's what we're given. Now, this is an issue because there is a 0.5% difference in the overall ratings of the seasons. So I don't think that I can quite judge my entire opinion based off of these general season comparisons. What I'm going to need to do is deep dive onto things like the map, the weapons, and the features to see what actually defines what's better about the overall chapter, not just the season ratings, because they're way too similar to make any judgments off of. Next, we'll compare the maps. While weapons and loot pools can completely change, the map of a chapter typically remains similar in shape and content from its beginning. Starting with Chapter 4, I honestly couldn't stand this map. It was massive and started with only 9 POIs, making the large majority of the map feel pointless. It was also super hard to traverse or see anything with so many giant trees and cliffs in the way. It felt like wandering through a maze on its own, let alone when fighting people. The additions to the map in Season 2 and 4 were good, however, the massive shit stain in the middle kinda ruined it. The landing spots were very repetitive too. While POIs like Brutal, Mega City, Anvil, Faulty, Steamy, and the Last Resort hotels were all cool additions that I enjoyed landing at, most of them simply didn't feel like Fortnite spots. Not just because they looked incredibly realistic, but also because they weren't designed like Fortnite POIs, which ended up making them hard to traverse and fight in, aside from the hotels. Those were cool. The whole map felt like something out of another fantasy game, not even designed for Fortnite, especially with so many jagged edges and huge cliffs everywhere. It was fun for zero build, sure, but trying to have build fights and rotate felt impossible. The game ran so poorly on this map, and I still feel like I didn't even visit half of it, even after playing on it for hundreds of hours. This map is going to be getting a hard 5 out of 10 because even though amazing spots and biomes were added, the map felt like one giant amalgamation. But maybe that's the point, saying it was made up of fractured realities smashed together. Either way, I couldn't stand this map. Moving on to Chapter 5, it definitely fixed some things from Chapter 4, but it also has some of its own negatives. For positives, namely, the map is way more open, meaning you can actually see and fight people and not constantly run into objects. It's much more flat and traversable, and POIs feel like they have designated spots instead of being shoved into corners of land surrounded by useless obstacles and giant areas where land randomly shoots up and drops off, like Chapter 4. While it maintained the way too realistic look of Unreal Engine 5, some of the spots actually feel like they're made for Fortnite. Isn't that crazy? I enjoy Reckless, Lavish, Hazy, Ritzy, Piazza Fencing, Mount Olympus, Doomstat, many POIs from each season, minus Season 3, everything sucked out. I even like a lot of the unnamed spots like train stations and little houses, and they feel much more significant than those in Chapter 4, which were basically copy and pasted castles and huts with no special features, which left the map kinda lifeless. The train track is cool, although the train was unfortunately useless and unappealing. A negative is the lack of beauty. I hated Chapter 4's graphics, don't get me wrong, but the actual colors and lighting were admittedly majestic. Chapter 5 feels straight out of Call of Duty, piss filter and all. My main issue comes from the actual changes made to the map, however. It's awesome to have a map with so many biomes and different terrains, but the spots added only really felt cool during their seasons, and after that, they feel somewhat irrelevant. My favorite POIs and unnamed locations have pretty much all been removed and replaced with spots that I feel are worse. The Season 1 map is, in my opinion, the best version of the map that we have, and even though so much content has been poured into the map, the content itself is just not that great. I still enjoy the map and how much easier it is to see, rotate, and fight on, so it will be getting a 6.5 out of 10, which isn't an amazing rating, but it's still notably higher than Chapter 4, and I will kind of miss it once it's gone. So Chapter 4 had slightly better seasons, Chapter 5 had a slightly better map. So what will be the determining factor? The weapons. Chapter 4 introduced so many iconic and powerful weapons each and every season. Off the top of my head, I loved the Havoc Pump, Havoc Rifle, Thunder Pump, Twin Mag SMG, Twin Mag Rifle, Shockwave Hammer, Katana, Mammoth Pistol, my favorite gun, Deku Smash, MK Alpha, Rocket Ram, Auto Turret, Slap Juice, Gold Slurps, you name it. Each season brought so many cool and strong weapons, and these defined the chapter as a whole for me. Dude, nothing beats Arena Season 2 with the 250 Havoc Pump and Katana for rotation. That was some peak Fortnite. While Season 1 had some weak weapons and Season 3 was filled with spray, they still added cool items and weapons respectively, not to mention Season 2's fun comp loadout and Season 4 having the best, most diverse loot pool for zero build that we've ever seen. Overall, the guns and items of Chapter 4 will receive an 8 out of 10, and some of these need to be reused in Chapter 6 because they're so cool. Now, I'm sure you expected this, but the story isn't quite the same for Chapter 5. Now on the surface, seeing things like the AUG, TAC rifle, combat shotgun, and all these other weapons returning sounds exciting, as well as looking at the new additions, but there is one thing that ruins just about the entire loot pool: bullet drop. Adding bullet drop has not turned out as intended. Instead of creating a skill gap and forcing more close range fights, it's instead made everyone worse, and now every fight, close or long range, kind of relies on more RNG. The attachment system was probably supposed to counter this, but having guns with bullet drop combined with more recoil and bloom create weapons that seem nearly impossible to use. The entire gimmick of the attachments barely changes this, and even a fully modded version of a Chapter 5 gun still feels less powerful than a basic weapon that is hit scan. The only attachment that really makes a difference is the scope, obviously. The weapons themselves are mostly underwhelming, and the only ones that were really good were the Thunderburst, Dual Uzis, Gatekeeper, and my glorious baby, the Reaper Sniper, which single-handedly carried 2 seasons and many montages. The hammer pump is, mark my words, the worst pump shotgun in Fortnite history. It shoots about 4 years slower than any other shotgun. I actually hate that thing, and I hit consistent 31s with the gold version in BR, but in creative I can't stop 190ing with it. It is so weird. That shotgun needs to go to hell. I can't stand it. The Frenzy Auto was mad overpowered, and nearly every other gun was just a worse ripoff of older guns with bullet drop. It's a chore to have a basic fight with these guns, and going from reload or creative to battle royale, you can really see the difference, and it's not good. They fumbled hard by not adding onto the weapon mods pretty much at all and making them useful in any way to combat bullet drop. The loot pool has been trashed this chapter, and almost every movement item has been horrifically useless. The loot pool will receive a 4 out of 10, bringing Chapter 5 down significantly. So while it was a close race overall, and Chapter 5 definitely did have the upper hand on the map, in the end, because of how atrocious Chapter 5's weapons have been, I'm going to have to give the better chapter to Chapter 4. I would say these two chapters are both probably the worst chapters of Fortnite. No, definitely the worst chapters of Fortnite. And I think the success of the OG seasons as well as Reload tells Epic Games that they need to stick to OG graphics, OG style guns, and not change their game that much. Although I have had incredible fun the last two chapters, it just doesn't compare to the previous three. And overall, I think they should probably follow neither of these chapters and revert back to what they're doing now and make Chapter 6 styled off of the older chapters. But in the end, even if I don't think Chapter 5 is quite as good as Chapter 4, I did still have a lot of fun, and I will definitely miss some of the memories I've made. If you guys made it to the end of this video, consider subscribing. I put a lot of work into this video, and I'm hoping that you enjoyed it. I will see you guys in Chapter 2 to make some amazing content, funny videos, and go crazy. God bless you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.